Good day, everyone. My name is Victor, and I'm going to talk about coping with stress. So, first of all, what is stress? Stress can be defined as any type of change that causes physical, emotional, or psychological strain. Stress is your body's response to anything that requires attention or action. So, how do we cope with stress? Coping with stress can be possible to adaptable strategies. We can do this by number one, problem focused coping. It targets controlling or changing the source of stress. It tackles the source in a practical manner. Strategies include employing problem solving techniques, time management, and getting rid of unsocial support. Next is emotional focused coping. It involves lowering or changing the source of stress. It tackles the source of the stress is external and beyond the person's control. Strategies include distraction, talking out, or verbalizing your problem, prayer, or meditation. Next is cognitive coping. It involves a conscious intellectual activity of managing stressful situations, using the mind for combating stress inducing thoughts. Some strategies for cognitive coping: reframing, changing the way one views experiences or events, challenging negative events, questioning the negative thoughts and taking control of it, positive self talk, talking about oneself in a positive manner. Count to 10. This is to give oneself time to gain control of emotions. This allows rethinking the situation and finding a better coping strategy. Cost benefit analysis. Reflecting on one's thoughts, emotions, or actions, and by asking yourself, is it worth it? S- Smell the roses. This is a way to tell yourself to relax, to take an effort to appreciate the neglected aspects of life. Keeping perspective, breaking down problems to smaller tasks. This is to know which problems need to be addressed right away compared, this is a typo, that doesn't need attention at the moment. Reducing uncertainty. This is to gather information about the problem. It helps to gather positive information than negative ones. And lastly, using imagery or visualization. It is to use the imagination or memory to calm oneself down. Behavioral coping strategies. These are ways to deal with stress through action. Physical exercise, relaxation, breathing, smiling, and laughing. Time management, seeking support, and seeking professional help. That is all. Thank you for listening.
Good day, everyone. My name is Sumaya M. Alawi, and I will present to you the 24 positive coping strategies for stress. These coping strategies are divided into four something like categories. The first one is the physical and lifestyle strategies. These are the strategies that will help you to keep your body away from stress by maintaining yourself physically healthy and fit. The first 24 positive coping strategy is the abdominal breathing and relaxation. Best example of this is meditation, like keeping yourself, I keep or like keeping your mind away from the hustle and stress, just having a clear thoughts. Low stress diets, something like eating more fruit and veggies and less intake of high fat foods like junk foods, especially the fast foods. Downtime. Downtime is not about being depressed. It's something about keeping our time in an equilibrium. So like keeping the like balancing the fun and work. Of course, regular exercise. Exercise, of course, can and will maintain your body healthy and fit. After a long day or you're having a long day, of course, you need and you have to take some mini breaks because we're not machines that can work all day, though they also need some breaks, but so do we. Time management can help you to reduce long short-term stress by giving you directions when you have too much work to do. It's like this is a road that you will keep that will keep your works and time aligned so you can accomplish all your works or your dues in in a time. So yeah. Okay. Sleep hygiene is not something like you have to wash your face before you go to sleep or brush your teeth. More like something completing your sleep. And more like completing the hours of your sleep. Non-toxic environment. Non-toxic environment is being present in a conflict-free area or non-toxic area. Something like being present in a hassle-free and stress-free environment. Material security. Mm, the basics. Do you really need that designer clothes? Just go the basics. Okay, the next strategy is emotional strategies. This will help you to modify the meaning of a stimulus or situations that gives rise to emotional reactivity. And one of these is social support and the relatedness. Social support and relatedness is like having an access to the assistance from other people. So like you're opening your door for other peoples to help you, and those people are your family, your friends, and the community. Those people who you can rely on when you are having a bad time, and they are willingly to help you. Self-nurturing simply means self-love, like giving yourself some me time, just your time for yourself, and to let yourself grow and nurture. Good communication. Good communication is more than just exchanging information like ideas, thoughts, and opinions. It will help us to share what's in our thoughts, what's bothering in our thoughts, and be able to resolve it with or without the others and with the help of others. Assertiveness is like having a power to control your emotion, your own emotions, and block all the negativity that will come to you. Recreational activities. Recreational activities is just having a good time that will help you clear your thoughts and just have some fun. Emotional release. Having someone or something to rely on when you feel under the weather. It's like having a company in the bad weather. Of course, we all need someone to rely on, just like what I said earlier. Sense of humor, of course. You know the proverb, laughter is the best medicine. Yeah, that's it. Sorry. Cognitive strategies. Cognitive strategies is what people use to solve their problems and or exploit opportunities, including all sorts of reasoning, planning, arithmetic, etc. Under this is sorry. One of these positive coping strategy is constructive thinking. By being able to think of anything that will counter negative thoughts, just keeping happy thoughts. Distraction. It's not about distracting yourself from the bad, something like that, but being able to distract yourself from any negative preoccupation, just having a good hobbies that will distract yourself from having a bad thoughts. Task oriented approach to problem. Like having a good reflex and wide attention to your surrounding. Sounds like a skill that will help you to be oriented and also like something distracting yourself from any negative preoccupations. Acceptance. Acceptance is an ability to accept and cope with setbacks. And lastly, tolerance for ambiguity. It's ability to see the shades of gray. The last and foremost strategies set of strategies is philosophical or and spiritual strategies. There are only three positive scoping strategies under the philosophical spiritual strategies, and those are consistent goals or purpose to work toward. Like, go lang ng go hanggang sa pangarap mo yung maabot. Something like that. Just straightforward without looking back. Mm. Positivity of a positivity philosophy of life. It's like having a set of beliefs, values, and principles that guide an individual's behavior, and of course, in a good way. Lastly, of the 24 positive coping strategies is having a hope, having faith, having faith, hope, and love to God, and let Him help you, let Him guide you to the righteous way. That's all for my report. On to the next reporter.
Good day, my name is Victor and I'm gonna talk about stress in Filipinos. So, for an introduction, the effect of culture on stress and coping is so pervading that the people within the culture group does not notice it. But when cultural contexts are being compared, the differences between how people deal with stress becomes striking. So, the given situation here is, for my example, is the loss of a premature baby. This is observed by Mary Catherine Bateson. She is an American writer and cultural anthropologist. When she was in this situation, she observed with the Filipinos that they express sympathy. They will ask questions about the problem. So like the loss of like the premature baby, and it will get you to open up about the problem. They will ask questions, kakamustahin ki, ka, kakamustahin ka, ganun. And like they're gonna ask, are you okay? They're gonna comfort you, stuff like that. But when it comes to Americans, she said, Americans would just shake hands. They would just say sorry for their loss, and they would just leave the family, and so they can mourn in private, and they have their own time to heal from the loss. So this is just an example of like how culture differs from how culture like how different cultures deal with stress. So, in summary, the Americans, they would think that the Filipinos' behavior is an act of intrusion, and the Filipinos would think that that the Americans do not grieve for their dead. So, like because of these differences, they would think of this they would think this way. So, what are like the different um what are like the different factors that affect stress and common processes in different cultures? So there's the kind of stressor, the appraisal or like the meaning, coping strategies, and time-honored tools slash mechanisms. For the kind of stressor, it shapes the wait, sorry. The cultural context shapes the kind of stressor that an individual is likely to experience. For example, Europeans find crowded places stressful because they crave privacy, while Filipinos are delighted to see a crowd. Uy, may kasayahan. They would think there's a party, something like that. And then there's appraisal slash meaning. The culture may also affect the appraisal of a certain event. For instance, noise is stressful, but what kind of noise? Some people find the Philippine streets with all the hawking, peddling, and shouting noisy. Yet they have no problem listening to the songs on high volume, especially when like I think everybody here is I know familiar with commuting here in the Philippines, and you will see jeeps going around and like parkers shouting where the jeeps will go to, and like they're blasting loud music. Us Filipinos are used to that, so that we don't find it noisy. And then coping strategies. Culture affects an individual's coping strategies, as was displayed by the Mary Catherine Bateson story. So, just like what they did, they comfort each other when like there's something wrong. And then lastly is the time honor mechanisms. Culture provides different time honor tools slash mechanisms by which an individual can cope with stress. So that is all for my slides. I think anyone could ask questions after this video, I guess. Yeah, thank you for listening.
Good day, everyone. My name is Sumaya M. Alawi from 1MTA. I will present to you the Filipino traits and values. But first, before I start, let me ask you, as a Filipino, do you think that we're too fond with Western culture? Let me introduce to you to Ermerita Quito. She is a philosopher, professor, and an author. She proposed to take a second look at the supposed negative Filipino traits and values. Quito wrote that Filipinos are fond of comparing themselves unfavorably with Westerns by using Western standards, like the standards for beauty, standards for education, standards for fashion, for food, etc., etc. Thus, she discussed some Filipino traits within Oriental cultural contexts, in contrast to Western culture. Oriental culture emphasizes conformity with nature and is not inclined to exaggerate or overreact. But did you know that in contemporary English, Oriental usually refers to things from the parts of East Asia, traditionally occupied by East Asian and most Central Asians and Southeast Asians, racially categorized as Mongoloid. This excludes the Jews, Indians, Arabians, and most of the other South and West Asian people. Western culture thrives on individuality, and any threat to one's independence is a source of stress. Hence, it must be removed. While Filipinos, on the other hand, thrives on maintaining a harmonious relationship. Any disruption to this harmony is a stressor, hence it must be avoided. Do you know the gym rat guy who said that goal ko, focus. Pag may taong di makakasama, iwan, 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 kahit pamilya mo pa. See his mentality or mindset sounds like very westernized, wasn't it? Anyways, we could agree to his mindset of goal ko, focus. It's a good thing. But iwan mo kahit pamilya mo pa is it sounds unpleasant to us because we Filipinos believe in harmony and all for one work and teamwork make dream works, though in most of the cases it wasn't always achieved. Anyways, in this slide, I'll show you some Filipino traits and how they are evaluated based on Western and Oriental cultures as discussed by Kito. Yeah, why is it negative in Oriental concept? Because in Western, hiya stops one from taking action. Hiya makes the person weak, timid, and meek. If you notice in most of the Western movies, the mahiyaing tao, the timid character, the shy type character is were always being picked on. They were always being bullied because they see them as a weak person. They see them as they are not capable of protecting themselves from any harm. But why is it positive in Oriental culture? So you see, Hia contributes to peace of mind. Like not trying to achieve makes for a less hurried and stressful life. So we Hia is like laying back, we say this mahiyaing person, like mahiyaing tao, this we see them as a peaceful person, like they are too nice to do something reckless, or they are not, we see them as they are not capable of doing something bad because they are a timid person. Ningas Kogon. Ningas Kogon, in Western concept, Ningas Kogon makes a person an underachiever because he or she cannot persevere in seeing things, example, projects, tasks, or goals to its fruition. So it's like being too laid back to do things, or too laid back to accomplish things on time. But why is it positive in Oriental culture? Ningas Kogon, this trait makes for a peaceful and tranquil life because one is unruffled should things go wrong. Being detached allows the person to move on to some other activities without feeling an absolute failure. Like Ningas Kogon is being unbothered person. Pakikisama. Why is it negative? Because pakikisama in Western's culture, um, um, it's like tolerating and turning a blind eye to the wrongdoings of others for the sake of the personal relationship. But in Oriental culture, pakikisama is like showing some respect, keeping a polite distance from others people's lives with whom we share to same space with you to maintain the peace and harmony. It's like pakikisama is respecting the relationship we have with others and like leaving no homie behind. Patigasan. Western culture sees patigasan as being stubborn and resisting in reconciliation. But in Oriental culture or Oriental concept, patigasan is as self-explanatory. It is a trait that makes us stand for what is right and refuse to be intimidated or forced to submission. Um, like just being strong and standing on your own ground because you know you have something na maipaglalaban mo talaga. Bahala na. Bahala na. Why is it negative in Western concept? Because bahala na leaves everything to chance with the help of a divine. It's self-explanatory because like bahala na si Batman. Like you're putting too much of faith on God while you are not doing anything to to make the miracle happens. That's how they see the bahala na. But in Oriental culture, bahala na it's like having a hope, putting faith in higher being and having an hope, and it's like a driving force to believe things will go in good ways. And feeling like um it's an um like you are not alone in the struggles you are going through. Kasi, why is it negative? Because self-explanatory. Kasi disowns responsibility, puts blames on others, people's things, circumstances, blah blah blah. Um, it's like in Western culture, kasi is like finding an excuse for everything. You don't want to do some things, pahala na. So parang papasok dito yung pag ayaw may dahilan, pag gusto may paraan. But why kasi um positive in Oriental culture? Because kasi it's like having a mini breaks from hustles and bustles. Like um you will not stress out because of the guilt of feelings for self-recrimination. On to the next slide. Saving face. Self-explanatory. This is closely related to Hia, and saving face encourages shirking from responsibility. So like saving face is um being weak, too weak um to stand up for your responsibilities, something like that. But it is positive in Oriental culture because saving face promotes mental therapy because it allows the person to keep his or her identity. Sakop. Why is it negative in Western culture? Sakop is, Western has a stronghold on independency, so they see Sakop as being subordinate and and being not capable of doing something for yourself. While it is positive in Oriental culture because Sakop promotes unity, simply mean being together and sticking up for each other. Bukas na. This is what they call the manyanya habit because I don't know, but I feel like Western culture or the Western people does not like being late. So they see manyanya habit as promoting laziness and will not act when problem is still small, thinking it will go away by itself. But bukas na or manyanya habit in Oriental concept is being calm and keeping things in line, just like just like going with the flow. Utang na loob. I don't know why I don't know why, but I feel like Western see utang na loob as literal being in debt for those who ask you for a favor. While as Filipinos, we see utang na loob as a personifies the Filipino sayings, ang hindi marunong lumingon sa pinanggalingan ay hindi makakarating sa kanyang pinatutunguhan. Self-explanatory. Kanya-kanya. Western culture sees kanya-kanya as selfish, being selfish with no regards for the world's well-being. While in Oriental concept, kanya-kanya means I can take care of myself, I can take care of my own, so you can take care of what's your problems, you can take care of what's important to you. What is a social stress? Social stress is stress that stems from one's relationship with others and from the social environment in general. Based on the appraisal theory of emotion, stress arises when a person evaluates a situation as personally relevant and perceive that they do not have the source to cope or handle the specific situation. So, stress can aggravated when you have the little capabilities to change your circumstances. And what are the sources of social stress? First, problem with work or earning an income. Who won't stress out when you know that when you came home and you don't have the means to provide for yourself and to your family. So, syempre, you will stressed out because you have nothing to give for them. Parenting. Most juvenile delinquencies, underlying reasons for their actions and behavior is socialization, but mostly because of their behavior. Um, it's because of various family problems and struggles. Education. Some people want to attain knowledge and education, but the problem is they do not have the um, ex- um, financials to provide for their needs in education to attain higher education. Sex and sorry for the words, sex and socialization. Some people tends to exclude a person or two in their group due to whatever reason they think the other person wasn't capable of. So um indeed some people excludes other persons because they think they are not capable of what they can do. Immigration status and or language. The example of this is the people who lives in the city, the stereotype that the people who lives in the city and the people who lives in province, especially the sorry for the word Bisaya, because some people tend to look at them as sorry for the word poor, uneducated, doesn't have manners because and they were even called as sorry for the word bisakol, which is very offensive, sorry. Personal, physical, and physiological health. When example of I think that when I think about this particular source of social stress is when you do not meet the standards that some people only accepts. That's when it becomes the a stress on you. Peer pressure, peer pressure. Having friends is a okay, but when they start to do something like drinking, smoking, and you feel like you don't want to, but you still feel like you're obligated to do so because you want to put your friendship on top rather than losing them, so you chose to lose yourself. So that's when peer pressure comes. Social marginalization. Sorry for the words. Um, this is also stereotypes. Example of this is uh, the rich people and the poor people. Most of the cases, rich people has more privilege, has more access to physiological and material needs of human being, and some other things such as house, education, healthcare. Social status is seen as a common denominator for social stress. So, example if this, as I said a while ago, if you're poor, it usually means having less income and opportunities. Uh, and you always have the lower quality of education and decreased access to proper healthcare. These problems typically contributed to problems in interpersonal relationship such as marriage and in parenting. So they feel like they are stuck in that status, so they tend to give up and makes them more susceptible to stress. Stress and the sociological perspective. Emile Durkheim's book Suicide shows how the social organization of group influence the individual behavior of their members. Durkheim hypothesized that the extent to which an individual is integrated within a group affects the likelihood of suicide. So, what I understand is whatever group or organization are you belong to, you will always be affected to the behavior of others. Very slightly similar to domino effect. Anyways, Three primary types of suicide is egoistic suicide, altruistic suicide, and anomic suicide. Egoistic suicide occurs when a person feels he or she is not belong or accepted to the society. So the social bond is very weak. Altruistic suicide occurs when a person ends his or her life for others. Lastly, anomic suicide is linked to disillusionment and disappointment. So, anomy was a concept Durkheim developed to describe is a state where social and or moral norms were confused, unclear, or simply not present. This is similar to egoistic in that social bond is very weak. However, its distinction is that the weak social bond is due to the occurring social changes. Durkheim studies shows how personal problems are influenced by social forces. There are two major types of stressors, the life event and chronic strains. Life event is important specific experience that interrupts an individual's usual activity routine that he or she needs to adjust, while chronic strain is a problems that have been occurring for some time. The person's role is strained or threatened. So example of life event stressor is a trauma or emotional problems like anxiety, depression, and something like that. Also, divorce, loss of job, the death of loved one. Sorry for the word, sexual assault, and many more to mention. An example of chronic strain is when you are always going to school very late and you always stuck on a traffic or inadequate access to water, and many more to mention. There are common types of role strains. These are the role overload, interpersonal conflicts with role self, inter-role conflict, and role restructuring. Role overload is the role demands on an individual exceeds his or her capacity to handle. For example, you are a student and a single parent. You are shuffling roles as a student and a worker, a parent, and a breadwinner. Interpersonal conflicts within roles. Interpersonal conflicts within role sets is these are the problems and difficulties that arise in a relationship. Example, wife, husband, parent, child, and worker and supervisor. Interrole conflict is the demands of two or more roles held by a incompatible, and the demands cannot simultaneously be met. For example, is as a working student, your work shift suddenly change, and this ran in conflict with your schedule. Role re- role restructuring. Role reconstructuring, long established patterns undergo considerable change and the person needs to adapt or adjust. For example, as an adult, you now find yourself supporting and caring for your aging parents because they have no capacity to live independently. So, how stress is appraised? Stress is appraised by symbolic interactionism. Symbolic interactionism is a sociological perspective that focuses on the language and symbols to help you give meaning to life experiences. Symbolic interactionist notice that as a person, you interact with the world and you change your behavior based on the meaning you give in your social interaction. You spend time thinking about what to do next and adjust your approach depending on how you believe others sees you. it is your belief in how others perceive the events in how they see you that will stress you out. So example of this is um, your behavior when you are outside of your home. So when you are in your home, so it's your comfort zone. So you tend to be more noisy, to be more noisy, to be more energetic, to be more playful. But when you step outside of your home, of your house, you tend to be more quiet. You tend to be more mature, like you are not very hype person. Mediators of stress, coping and social support. So what is coping? Coping refers to the personal response that can be activated when stressful circumstances arise. Coping refers to the things people do to oh so sorry to prevent, avoid, or control emotional distress. There are three basic objectives of coping. One, to eliminate or modify the stressful situation so that it will not be a continuing problem. Two, control the meaning of problem by cognitively neutralizing the situation. Three, control the stress by the situation. Example, through stress management technique. So I can example for this is when me when I'm having a stressful day, um and I cannot think of anything, I tend to eat a lot. So my coping mechanism for stress is eating, or sometimes playing video games. It's my coping mechanism when I'm very sad or when I'm very stressed. So eating makes me relax my mind and make me think clearly of what I can do to solve my problem. So after that, when my mind is clear, I can think of anything that can resolve my problem. That's all. To the next reporter.
Good day! I am Elijah Dominic Osoteo, and I am here to discuss about the role of social class, race, and gender to social stress. Let us base on our concept map right here, where it shows that social stress branches out into social class, race, and gender. There is then an arrow from the latter tree pointing to the cultural differences in stress response that once again branches out into three topics that includes the types of stressors, perception of stressors, and coping mechanisms. First, what is social stress? Social stress is defined as a situation which threatens one's relationships, esteem, or sense of belonging within a dyad, group, or larger social context. Social stress is a term that refers to strain that is formed as a result of one's relationships and their social environment. Let us proceed to social class. A social class is a grouping of people into a set of hierarchical social categories, the most common being the upper, middle, and lower classes. Membership in a social class can, for example, be dependent on education, wealth, occupation, income, and belonging to a particular subculture or social network. So, what is the role of social class to social stress? Those who are in the lower social class have higher mental and emotional stress than those who are affluent. The three common factors as to why are the inadequate financial resources, greater use of ineffective coping strategies, and less access to social support. Next is race. Race is the idea that the human species is divided into distinct groups on the basis of inherited physical and behavioral differences. However, genetic studies in the late 20th century refuted the existence of biogenetically distinct races, and scholars now argue that races are cultural interventions reflecting specific attitudes and beliefs that were imposed on different populations in the wake of Western European conquest beginning in the 15th century. What is the role of race to social stress? Well, research shows that response to stress vary and the person's ethnicity is relevant to his or her stress response. Researchers found that even when social class is controlled, race continues to be an important predictor of distress. Their study showed that African American women still feel more stressed compared with European American females of the same social class. However, African American women also have more access to social support than European American females. This may help explain the pattern that even though African Americans often experience higher levels of stress than white American females, they have lower levels of mental disorder. Next is gender. Gender refers to the characteristics of women, men, girls, and boys that are socially constructed. This includes norms, behaviors, and roles associated with being a woman, man, girl, or boy, as well as relationships with each other. What is the role of gender to social stress? Women were found to have higher rates of psychological distress and depression compared to men. According to a researcher, this is evidenced across cultures over time in different age groups in as well as urban areas and in treated as untreated populations as well. Possible causes for the high disparity between women and men are number 1, women tend to be delegated to the caregiver role more than men. Number 2, women are more inclined to be emotionally involved in the lives of people. Number 3, women interject rather than express anger. Interjection is a person's ability to take in the expectations and projections of others, communicated non-verbally or verbally, covertly or overtly, and take these as the person's own. And lastly, number 4, continuing power differences between women and men in society. Let us proceed to the cultural differences in stress response. First, what is culture? Culture is the set of ideas, beliefs, expectations, and behaviors shared by a particular group of people. So, how does culture affect a person's experience to stress? First is the type of stressor to which a person may likely be exposed. Different cultural groups live in different geographical, economic, and political areas. Hence, the types of stress a cultural group is exposed to will also depend on their general location. For example, for Filipinos, a 2017 survey showed that their jobs or studies were their leading cause of stress. However, for someone who lives in war-torn Syria, the primary concern would have been something else, such as their safety and food. Another answer to the question how culture affects a person's experience to stress is how a stressor will be perceived. Perception of stressors. Cultures differ according to what their members perceive as stressful. For example, Southeast Asian neighbors like Korea or Japan, academic success is given higher importance. This degree of educational stress is reflected in the number of Japanese students committing suicide for not passing an exam. However, such occurrences, though not unheard, are very rare in the Philippines. The last answer to the question how culture affects a person's experience of stress is the coping mechanisms available to deal with stress. Some of the ways that cultures differ in the way they make available different coping mechanisms for their members are number 1, beliefs that would allow them to make sense of stressors. Cultures transmit belief systems that may affect the way their members make sense of stressors and consequently how well they are able to cope with them. For example, religious beliefs as in the Philippines, the bahala na attitude of the Filipinos draws on divine assistance to help them cope. Other than a subjective impression that religion assists coping, it was also found to give beneficial health effects. Research showed that more African Americans suffer hypertension compared with European Americans. However, another study discovered that religious coping significantly helped lower down blood pressure among African Americans, though not with European Americans. The study suggested that the difference between how the cultures use religious beliefs in structuring their experiences might account for the different physiological reactions. The Western culture of independence and self-reliance could have an impact on a person's willingness to access coping resources, such as social support that being part of a religious group provides. The second reason that cultures differ in the way they make available different coping mechanisms to their members is the beliefs about how stressors should be coped with. Different cultures also transmit different values in coping with stress. For example, the Western culture of independence and self-reliance will impact the person's willingness to seek social support. Asking for some other people's help would be regarded as shameful because one's problem is typically dealt with alone. Meanwhile, for collectivist culture, being part of a social group is the primary coping mechanism. And lastly, the third reason that cultures differ in the way they make available different coping mechanisms to their members is the availability of social support. Cultures also vary according to the amount of social support they make available to their members. There is also considerable evidence that social support is one of the most important variables that affect the impact of stress. Individuals that come from cultures which offer more social support are able to cope better with stress. For example, it has been found that non-Western patients with schizophrenia have more social support and better treatment outcomes than Western patients. That is all for my topic. Thank you very much and God bless.
Taking care of the self, the need for self-care and compassion. What is stress? Stress is a natural occurrence. It is a state of mental or emotional strain or tension resulting from adverse or very demanding circumstances. Stress brings about psychological effects that could hinder you from reaching your full potential. Why do we feel stressed? Psychologist Abraham Maslow presented a motivational theory outlining needs illustrated in a hierarchical manner. The hierarchy of needs is in the form of a pyramid starting from the most basic and important need at the bottom and moving up to achieve
Deficiency versus growth. Maslow called the four bottom levels physiological, safety, belongingness, and love and esteem as deficiency needs because a person does not feel anything if these needs are met, but he or she becomes anxious if these needs are not met. These are also called low order needs. Maslow's theory holds that human beings are motivated by unsatisfied needs. If a need is unmet, the person feels agitated, and this motivates him or her to act and find ways to satisfy the needs. When a need is mostly satisfied, it is no longer a source of motivation, and the person moves on to the next higher need. Maslow further stated that a person could only move up onto the higher level of needs once lower level is securely met, and only then will a person be motivated to work on self-actualization. People are well motivated on those needs that unsatisfy them. They strive hard to achieve it to be satisfied. We have here the illustration of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs that illustrates how a person may react when needs are unsatisfied. For the first level of needs, which is the physiological needs such as the need to breathe, eat, drink, or sleep, the moment we get enough of that, we get motivated the next thing. Those are the needs that must be met every day. But if it isn't met or the needs are unsatisfied, the person feels sick, irritated, uncomfortable. If pathological, we can eat, drink too much, or engage in hoarding behaviors, and it will cause death. Now, for the level 2, the safety. Here, we try to earn money, build up resources, and look for shelter that protects us from against dangers. Once we are satisfied and feel safe, we have time to think about what we want next. But if not satisfied, it can affect our perception, like paranoia, can lead to neurosis, insecurities, and if pathological, can develop phobias such as agoraphobia. Next is at stage 3. We seek love and belonging. We desire to be close to family and friends, belong to a society, or join a gang. But the moment we feel completely part of the group, we already wish to be a little different than the rest. And if it's not met or not satisfied, we become increasingly susceptible to loneliness and social anxieties. If pathological, can lead to antisocial behavior. At stage 4, we look for esteem, self-confidence, and respect from our peers. We want to be someone. If we have money, we buy fancy watch. If we have a brain, we write or think or work a lot. Motivation to perform and compete is now at its highest. And if it's not satisfied, it may lower the self-esteem. Inferiority complex, if pathological, can lead to depression. Only if we breathe and drink and sleep enough and we feel safe and part of the group and yet still special, and then only then we can reach level 5. We are now at level 5, self-actualization. Now we can relax, be creative, accept facts from what they are, give back or do whatever we want, unless of course there's trouble below. And if this level is not met, it can cause feeling of lack in meaning in life. If pathological metapathologies such as boredom, alienation, or feeling isolated, detached, or lack of sympathy and estrangement. To summarize this, if we are a leader and we believe in this theory, we can use it. First, we make sure that everyone has eaten well. Then make them feel safe and help them belong to a group. Once they feel they belong, they are ready to stand out and excel.
Self-care, what is it and why is it important? Based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, satisfying the various levels of need is very important to a person's overall health and well-being. Part of your overall well-being and healthcare is to take care of yourself. Self-care, as described by the University of Kentucky, entails taking deliberate acts of looking after your mental, emotional, and physical health. What self-care is not. It is not every time you are stressed you say, I had a rough day so I'm going for a drink to unwind. Or, I am so hungry but I am on a diet so I won't eat. These notions of self-care are oversimplified. Proper self-care is taking a very active and powerful choice for maintaining optimal health that includes the physical, psychological, emotional, social, and spiritual components. Self-care is neither overindulging nor necessarily depriving yourself. Balance is important in self-care. Being good to yourself can help you reach your fullest potential. Compassion, neutral or learned. What is compassion? Compassion, framed as an emotion, is a felt response to perceiving suffering that involves an authentic desire to ease stress. Compassion is often confused with that of empathy and altruistic behavior. However, empathy, as defined by the researchers, is the visceral or emotional experience of another person's feelings. Altruism, on the other hand, is the unselfish regard or devotion to the welfare of others. It is commonly defined in two ways: the belief in or practice of disinterested and selfless concern for the well-being of others, and the behavior of an animal that benefits another at its own expense or self-sacrifice. That is all. Thank you for listening.
Hello, I am Elijah Dominic Osoteo, and I am here again to discuss about our last topic, which is compassion's surprising benefits for physical and psychological health. Here is a quote from Mary Davis. We can't heal the world today, but we can begin with a voice of compassion, a heart of love, and an act of kindness. First of all, what does it mean to have compassion? To have compassion means to empathize with someone who is suffering and to feel compelled to reduce their suffering. Compassion is as vital to life as the air we breathe. for in the absence of compassion, how many benevolent, selfless, and heroic deeds would have happened throughout history? Imagine our country without Dr. Jose Rizal, Andres Bonifacio, Tandang Sora, Gabriela Silang, and so many others. Imagine a world without the countless individuals who risked their own lives to save others during wartime. Imagine a world without those who would have run into burning buildings or without those who did other heroic feats of rescue during times of disaster. It's unthinkable. And what about the concept of compassion in modern everyday life? After all, if this quality has the power to inspire courageous deeds, it must also encourage all sorts of positive behaviors that have both physical and psychological health benefits. Now we proceed to compassion's surpassing benefits for physical and psychological health. Research suggests that compassion may have ensured our survival because of its tremendous benefits for both physical and mental health and overall well-being. It suggested that connecting with others in a meaningful way helps us enjoy better mental and physical health and speeds up recovery from disease and may even lengthen our lifespans. The possible reason for such benefits in psychological well-being is the fact that the act of giving results in a pleasurable feeling as evidenced by a brain imaging study. The parts of the brain that are active when a person experiences pleasure, such as eating their favorite desserts or receiving money, were found to be equally active when the person is doing acts of kindness, such as giving food to a homeless person or donating to a charity. Small acts of kindness can have enormous power for both the person being kind and the recipient, whether that's a stranger or someone in the same family. Many studies have found that kindness, compassion, and giving are associated with improved happiness, good mental health, a stronger immune system, reduced anxiety, stress, and depression, improved relationships, and a longer life. Research also shows that the happiness people get from giving to others creates a positive feedback loop. The more you give, the more positive you feel. This, in turn, fuels greater happiness. People who witness or benefit from someone's kindness and compassion are also more likely to be kind themselves. According to Dalai Lama, each of us, in our own way, can try to spread compassion into people's hearts. Western civilizations these days place great importance on filling the human brain with knowledge, but no one seems to care about filling the human heart with compassion. This quote is pertinent to the field of medicine, wherein medical school training places a strong emphasis on the attainment of knowledge with minimal attention given to the teaching of compassion. This lack of attention to compassion in the medical field has been reported by patients, with one survey indicating that only 53% of hospitalized patients reported experiencing compassionate care. However, for those experiencing serious or traumatic healthcare issues, bedside manner makes a huge difference in terms of the patient's emotional and physical health. Moreover, it only takes one uncaring medical professional to discourage future trips to the doctor. Clearly, the value and power of compassion are essential within the medical field. As patients face their pain, anxiety, and fear, nurturing of the soul takes on a vital role in both healing and coping. For example, in a 17-year longitudinal study of HIV patients, researchers found that greater giving of compassionate love and compassionate love towards oneself were predictive of longer survival. This finding is a true testament to the power of compassion. While the value of compassion in healthcare has gained increased attention among researchers, especially in the field of nursing, it remains a neglected focus of training. Of course, there is no reason for compassion within the healthcare to be a requirement only for nurses. Doctors also have a responsibility to respond to patients in a way reduces anxiety and promotes wellness and coping, especially for patients dealing with serious illness. One study found that physicians significantly reduced anxiety among cancer patients by simply providing a 40-second encouraging video that showed the doctor's compassion to their patients. Moreover, among patients who reviewed the short video, doctors were rated as higher in caring, compassion, and warmth. If a 40-second video of compassion can make a meaningful difference in reducing patient anxiety, why not ensure that it is consistently applied during patient-doctor conversations? With a few examples that I've given, we found out that compassion have a lot of benefits to oneself and to others. So with this in mind, why don't we start practicing compassion? Such as by helping others, being grateful, not being judgmental, and by also showing kindness to yourself. That's all for our topic. Thank you very much and God bless.